And we are live. Hello and welcome to the Billy and Andre show. So, Andre, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm really good. Great day, great week. Excited for another recording.
Yeah, this one was kind of inspired by you, actually, because you told me earlier in the week that you were going to a little festival.
Yeah, well, the work one, yeah.
It was a work festival, but a festival nonetheless.
It was still really fun. A long trip, but hey, it is what it is.
Long drive?
Yeah, about 4 hours. By the time we got back, I was super wasted. Right, it was 8 o'clock, super wasted. Got on the bus. 4 hours later, I was completely sober. I'm like, what was the point of that? I'm gonna go home sober now. What's going on?
I had a similar experience on the train to one of the download festivals I went to back when I used to go to those when I could afford it.
Before all the cool kids decided to be like, oh, listen, let's go to the festival.
Let's go to this festival and make it cost billions of pounds just to get a ticket. Absolute. Anyway, my complaints about festival ticket prices aside, festivals are fucking awesome.
They are.
They're just they like little pockets of anarchy. Yeah, that's the way I like to see it. It's
a bit of organized anarchy.
Yeah, it's organized anarchy. It's basically, The Purge. Remember the movie The Purge?
I never actually watched it.
I've never watched it either, but you get the idea that everyone knows the idea because it's been basically because everyone takes the piss out of it now. Yeah. But with the
when you end up making 6 of them, or how many they made,
I think it's 5. It was 5 the last time I checked. I don't honestly.
Usually with most trilogies, you should stop at 3 because it's called a trilogy.
Yeah,
right?
You really should. Anything past that, it's becoming a saga.
A saga.
Yeah, saga.
I think so.
But the whole concept of the Purge, right, is people need to get all the sort of bad, need a little bit of lawlessness in their life in order to get the bad feelings out to stop them from going insane.
Yeah.
We actually just have that. It's called festivals.
Yeah.
It's a place to go where you're outside of society, the rules don't really apply, and you can, basically do whatever you want. Within reason, obviously. It's organized anarchy. It's not completely it's not Mozambique or whatever. You're not going to some war-torn country where everyone's shooting at each other.
Wow, that was a choice of analogy.
It was, and I used it for a very specific reason, because we're not just going to be talking about festivals, we're going to be talking about bad things happening at festivals.
Nice.
So I got a few stats that I thought might sort of, break the ice a little bit. Can you guess, Andre, how many...
You're embracing the guess game.
Yes, I'm going to make you guess numbers now. Enjoy. How many festivals, major festivals I'm talking here, big attendance, big names, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
How many major festivals do you think there are, in the world every year?
That's across all the countries.
Across all the countries, yeah.
I want to say 100,000 festivals.
There's 100,000 probably smaller ones, in terms of major ones, over 10,000 people attending, that kind of thing.
Oh, maybe about 10,000 of them.
It's actually a lot lower than that.
What is it?
It's between it changes every year.
Yeah, because new people, new money, new festivals.
Yeah, sometimes you can't get the big names because they're touring too much, that kind of thing. 2,700 across the world.
Well, that's still a lot of festivals.
That's a lot of big festivals.
There are a lot of them in Europe and a lot of them in South America.
And a lot in the US, to be fair. The US is as a single country.
It's pretty big, isn't it?
Yeah. But, every sort of continent has its own big festivals. There's everyone knows stuff like Roskilde in Denmark.
Yeah.
Download here in the UK.
Yeah.
Rock in Rio.
Yeah. There's Armenia in Romania.
Is it?
Yeah. So there's this festival called Armenia every year in August, and Sir Sharkan went there without System of a Down because they already broke up at that point. Evanescence, I think they went twice.
Wait, it's called Armenia?
No, it's Artmania.
Ah, right. Okay. Sorry.
It's not called Armenia. It's
a festival called Armenia, and System of a Down went there. That makes sense. What would you say was your favorite festival that you've been to?
Favorite festival? Oh, well, I never stayed for a 3-day festival.
Really?
I like glamping. I'm not the kind of person that wants to go.
You're an indoor cat, and
I'm an indoor cat. So I go, I see the big names, and I leave. Right. So my favorite one was hands down AC/DC. so worth it. Like, you can't see them anymore. I don't think they're touring anymore.
I think
they're
Angus
done.
Young's pretty sick, I think.
I mean, because he was sick when he was touring. Because that's why my friends convinced me to go. Because they came up and they're like, oh, you need to see AC/DC. I'm like, there's still time. I'm young. I'm like, it's not about you.
Yeah.
You're not the problem in this.
Yeah, I went out of my way to go see Black Sabbath when I heard that Tony Iommi has lymphoma. And he's still alive. Like, this was like 10 years ago.
But you wouldn't know if he would still be around. So
that's
you're like,
the thing. You never know. You know?
Like, I wanted to see Dio, right, before he went. And the year that he was still touring. So you remember when he passed away? He was still touring at that point.
Yeah, the man was a machine.
The man went out on a bang, so he just had to cancel tours, and everybody was like, he's dead.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Rest in peace, Dio.
Yeah,
Rest in peace, Dio. You taught us how to rock.
Yeah.
Tenacious D reference.
He still teaches people how to rock, even though he's not around anymore.
I was just trying to think, like, in the back of my head, have I actually ever seen Dio? I don't think I did.
I missed him. I just missed him.
I was remembering seeing Killswitch Engage covering Dio, which is good cover and all the but
it's not Dio.
No, it's not Dio.
It's not him.
Killswitch was never my favorite band.
And now,
anyway.
if anybody actually listens to this, they'll be like, "What the fuck are they talking about?"
Well, they're probably thinking, "Wow, you can tell when these guys were born."
Yeah,
really, you're a child of the early '90s. What a shock!
Nobody will be surprised.
Not at all. Can you guess what the biggest festival in terms of the number of bands performing there is?
Biggest one. Give me a country.
I'll give you a number. I'll give you a number. Let's just say it's a UK festival.
Is it a UK festival?
It is.
Oh, Isle of Wight.
No.
Oh. No idea.
Glastonbury, you fool! It's the biggest one in the UK. I thought that was going to give it away like nothing.
No, it wouldn't.
How many bands do you think played at the largest Glastonbury?
15.
No, like bands, like overall, like all the bands, like all the stages, not just the main stage.
120.
Higher.
No way.
Yep.
200?
Higher.
Wow. 250.
Higher.
300. Wow, dude, like 565.
Higher.
Dude,
I can see why you like these guesses.
Does it get quadruple numbers?
No.
Okay, so I would say 727.
You're really close. Down a little bit.
725?
712. 712 is their biggest like number of artists. Bear in mind, obviously, you're talking about like the DJs who go all night and stuff like that. I mean,
yeah. But do you count DJs as a...
I actually do. I used to when I was like a rock kid, and I was like, "Nah, it's not even real music. You're not playing a guitar." I've changed my perspective on that. I went and saw. Well, actually, technically, I supported him. Played this like veterans gig thing, and the guy who was on after us was a DJ called Brandon Block.
Yeah.
90s guy. Absolutely banging set.
Yeah.
Absolutely destroyed the place. Like, It was genuinely eye-opening. It's like, oh, wow. Like, usually I need to take ecstasy to feel like I'm at a rave. But this is just getting me there au naturel. It's awesome.
So was it just the whole mix was really well made?
Yeah. And it's the way he, like, blended the songs together and then used elements that he created himself. And it's just like, wait, is that from that? No, that's not from that. And then all of it, it's so much more complicated and,
It is. So I'm looking this guy, well, I don't even know how he came in my feed on YouTube, right? And there's this guy that teaches you how to mix songs and how to do a reverb, whatever they're called, all that kind of things. But you do it all through this app, which I didn't know. I want to pick it up just because I found it really cool. So I was thinking the other day, I should get Billy to do me a bass for it, and then just to mess around with it to see if I can actually make a new intro song.
That would be cool. Yeah. That would be cool.
Or you you come in, you came with a bass, we record it on your bass, and then I'll just mess around with it. Yeah. To see if I can do anything.
Plugging a bass direct into a laptop is spiky. I've tried that before. It can be a problem.
Why does it spike the sound up and down?
Yeah, because my bass is a bit hefty. It likes to put out a lot of output, so it's a bit, I need to seriously control the sound of that. Anyway.
Well, we're getting distracted.
we're talking like we're still at the pub, like, let's come up with some new ideas for the pod.
Bottom line, this show was made as a conversation at the pub. So
Yeah, basically.
I'm having fun, so I don't care.
We're not drinking beer though. We're drinking, delicious iced coffee that you.
They're called frappes.
Dude, don't do that to me. Don't make me say that word.
Why frappe? What's wrong with frappe?
Because every time I hear the word frappe, I just think of the Arrogant Worms song "Cup of Coffee," which is just a song about like arguing with the guy at the coffee shop. I was like, I don't even want a frappe. I just want a coffee that doesn't taste crappy.
Have you tasted Carol's frappe?
It's lovely.
It's lovely.
It's lovely. I'm just saying that, but that like song is going to be stuck in my head for a week now, and that's your fault.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. You can take that home.
I'll murder you off screen. Anyway.
I mean, the best murders are done off screen, Billy.
I don't know. Like, there's some good murders in movies. Anyway.
Moving on.
So, another fun little guessing game.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of a guy called I Hate Models?
No, I have not.
I think he's some sort of trance EDM guy. I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
Most festivals he's appearing on the most festivals this year at 45.
45 festival.
45 festival dates this year.
So if you divide that by 12, that would be what, 4 festivals?
I will trust your mental maths on that. Mine is not good.
No, that's about 3.5 festival a month.
Yeah, something like that.
So he just goes around. Good for him. He probably makes a lot of bank out of that.
I imagine so. I've never heard of the guy though. That's the thing. So what I've discovered from like my digging around on the information about festivals is that for every like big rock festival there is, there's like 20 EDM dance trance music festivals.
Well, are you surprised?
I'm actually not. No, because
a lot of people do enjoy that,
and it's cheaper to put on. Because
I mean, it's like a boot. Done.
Yeah, basically.
That was perfect timing, you think that?
Yeah, you're just like, you want like a bass drop now. Perfect. We're gonna remix that and turn it into like,
it's gonna be a constant viral just going boom, boom, boom,
yeah.
boom, boom. Okay.
So we're gonna talk about festivals, and because festivals are sort of outside society a little bit, they do have like this sort of tendency to attract weirdos, strange people who don't necessarily fit in anywhere else. And of course, sometimes that also leads to violence, which it occurs basically everywhere.
I mean, there's violence on the streets probably right now.
Yeah, there's probably some guy getting his ass kicked on the other side of this wall, and we'd never even know it.
No, because I put a lot of foam behind us.
Good soundproofing is key, ladies and gentlemen. So I wanted to talk about a couple of them today, and one of the first ones that I was talking about with you in private was the Isle of Wight.
Yeah,
the Isle of Wight, specifically the Isle of Wight in 1970, which is a big one because Jimi Hendrix played there, The Who played there.
Yeah.
My dad actually went there at the tender age of 16 years old. He took his motorbike from where we live to, I forget where the place is that gives the ferry to the Isle of Wight, Southampton or...
Southampton, I think it was Southampton.
Probably Portsmouth, one of those two.
Yeah.
Went over to the Isle of Wight, tender age of 16, because you could ride a motorbike basically any size you wanted at 16 back then. I mean, this is 1970. It's a long-ass time ago.
I didn't have the regulations the same way they have the regulations now, is it?
No. Old bike tests used to be a bloke with a clipboard would stand at the side of the road, basically send you on your way to go round the block, and if you came back and you hadn't fallen off, you passed.
Oh, that's a good test.
Yeah, it's a really good test.
Can they do that with the driving nowadays? I mean, it does feel like today I raged on the road like 3 times.
Really?
Yeah. It was ridiculous. People are like just imbeciles.
Well, imagine that, but like worse, and it's kids on motorbikes, and that's basically England for most of the 70s. I
mean, listen. Hear me out. Natural selection. I mean, if you're not good enough to ride a motorbike, don't ride a motorbike, right?
The problem is no one finds out if they're good enough to ride a motorbike until they've ridden one.
Once again, Billy, stronger genes, natural selection.
So we're like removing the dumbasses one car crash at a time.
Exactly.
That should be your slogan if you're
it works. It works out. It's like...
So elect Andre for mayor, making the world better one dumbass crash at a time.
Listen, it will be great. You would literally, it will be maximum sentence of 6 months if you run one of these idiots over.
Jesus.
Maximum. And it doesn't even go on your record.
Would you like a job in the Trump administration? Anyway.
I'm making the world stronger, Billy.
That's what Hitler said. Anyway, back to festivals. And speaking of, people getting, unfortunately removed from the gene pool before their time. You've heard of Woodstock. You've heard of the original,
yes.
It's kind of like the template for festivals. Lots of people taking drugs, getting absolutely out of their minds and watching insane bands play whilst the band is also on drugs. This one was...
if everybody's done drugs, nobody's really on drugs, is it? It all levels out.
That's not how that works. But I appreciate the way your mind works, dude. Now, this was the sort of sequel to Woodstock. It was called Woodstock West. It was actually like the much longer and more boring title was At Lamont Speedway Free Festival. Took place the same year, though, 1969. 300,000 people in attendance. 300,000. That's the largest one I've ever been was Download 2009. And that had about 100,000, something like that in it. Yeah. That was mental. That was a lot of people. Yeah. This is 3 times bigger than that.
Well, nice.
Yeah. Took place at the Atlamont Speedway, which I believe has been closed down following this incident, which we'll get to in a minute. Really, really killer lineup there. That's the main thing you've got to remember. Like, this is the height of the Rolling Stones. They're headlining. Yeah. Santana played there before. Oh, yeah, original Santana when he was young, when he was like...
When he was still making shit up.
Yeah, when he was still finding himself, before he became like just cool old grandpa with guitar. Now
he's still cool.
He's still cool. He's still cool. He's smooth,
Yeah, he's like, he's like, don't worry about it.
But he's a cool dude. Or, Jefferson Airplane also, Do You Want Somebody to Love That Song, Yeah. Also a banging band. 300,000 people show up to this thing. Here's a slight problem, the mistake they made. Essentially, 4 people ended up dying. Why? Oh. They hired the Hells Angels as security. Now,
so basically security was selling drugs and guns?
I'm not quite finished. That was the first mistake they made.
Sorry.
The next mistake they made was to pay them in beer. Specifically, $5,000 worth of beer.
But how did they agree to that? I wouldn't have agreed to that, even as a Hell's Angel. I'll be like...
Well, think about it. You basically get a free ticket to the show, you get a front row seat, and you get all the beer that you want. The Hells Angels are out for a good time, man.
Okay, not for a long time, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, they weren't for a long time at this point. But, yeah, so, of course... As the evening progressed towards the headline performance of the Rolling Stones, the security guards were getting more and more drunk. And security guards at festivals are kind of dickheads at the best of times.
They shouldn't be drunk dickheads.
They should not be drunk dickheads, no. And these aren't like, guys in, high-vis... these are guys in, like, leather vests with patches on and, like, knives and knuckle dusters and, like, motorbike chains wrapped around their hands just to sort of threaten you. The mood is going to be tense, It's going to be really, really tense. So as soon as they started getting drunk, fights started breaking out, people started shoving into, like, because the stage was really low. It was actually quite possible to climb up onto it without, like, much, it wasn't like the stages you see at, like, Reading and stuff now.
Yeah, which you're like...
Yeah, you're looking at the sky.
You're getting a neck cramp just being there.
Yeah. And, like, God help you if you're, like, under 6 foot tall, because, like some huge guy is going to stand right in front of you and not going to be able to see jack. That happens basically every festival, to be fair.
Well, see, this is why I like to be in the back at festivals.
Oh, right. Like,
I'm that guy.
Up a little bit?
No, just in the back, as you can see it better. Like, when I saw... AC/DC, I was in the front and I have no regrets for it because the middle stage, it lifts up to the sky. So you can see them play up in the sky, and then the massive doll came out and you could have seen the train when it came out on stage, like, perfectly. Like, you saw it so much better than up close. I don't think they saw anything up close.
Yeah, that's fair. When I saw AC/DC, it was kind of it was exactly the same, like, setup. They had, like, the giant inflatable trains for...
No, this was an actual train.
Oh, it was an actual train.
It was an actual train.
So they just threw Thomas the Tank Engine through the side of the...
Pretty much. I'm not even joking, dude. It was an actual train.
That was great.
When there was an inflatable doll, which was,
Oh, yeah, the whole lot of Rosie, for that song. Banging song. Yeah. When I saw them, there was a bit of an issue because it was Download 2010, and they split the front part of the stage. They put the AC/DC stage on one side of it, and the stage for everybody else for the rest of the weekend was on the other, because they've got all this, like, elaborate light show and shit like that. And because of that, the space was reduced by half, because they still had the central bit going down the middle. Yeah. So with that, you have a lot of people who are quite excited to see AC/DC up close, just crammed into half the space they would have normally. As you can imagine, stuff got
it was
a bit rough.
An involuntary mosh pit.
Yeah, kind
at AC/DC, which you don't mosh pit at AC/DC, do you?
I'm trying to remember if I mosh pit at AC/DC. I can't actually remember.
You shouldn't, because it's not the sort of band that mosh pits.
Really?
No, yeah.
Really?
Would you mosh pit on AC/DC?
I'll mosh pit to goddamn anything, man. I think I mosh pitted to Faith No More and Biffy Clyro once, you know? So
You slow clapped into a mosh pit, did you?
No, Biffy Clyro actually has like a whole thing about I am the mountain, something like that. And like people like the super fans all do the hand actions until like people just look at them and go, "What the fuck are you doing?" They're like, "Nothing." It was quite fun.
I'm a mountain.
Yeah, I'm a little mountain. I'm a small bean mountain.
You just see them going like this.
Yeah,
like, Illuminati.
That's fucking great.
All right, let's get back on subject.
Anyway, so
because I don't want this to be a 3-hour recording.
Well, it's going to be one of the. It's going to. Well, you know, we're probably going to look like assholes for joking about something that's quite serious. So
okay, we're serious.
Rolling Stones gig. Mick, funnily enough, there was a documentary made about it called "Gimme Shelter." The Rolling Stones arrived by helicopter because it's an an airport. Why not?
And it's the Rolling Stones.
As soon as they get off the helicopter, Mick Jagger gets punched in the face. So,
is that by a Hell's Angel?
No, it was by a crowd person, by a punter.
No.
So obviously the Hell's Angel security are not doing their job very well. There was during the Rolling Stones set, like people were getting visibly more agitated with the security guys because they're they're the barrier that's stopping them getting on stage and rocking out with the Rolling Stones, which I wouldn't want to be that guy.
Yeah,
and the Hells Angels are starting to get more rowdy. They're starting to, they're circling, they're kettling people in with motorbikes. They're like, hitting people with bike chains, that kind of thing. Throwing beer cans at people. And unfortunately, it started getting out of hand when a man called Meredith Hunter, who was 18 years old.
His name was Meredith? His
name was Meredith Hunter, yeah, like Meredith Brooks. I thought it was a woman at first as well. I had to do a little bit of reading in between the lines. I was like, wait, he was a dude. Oh, okay, right.
So Hell's Angel named Meredith.
No. This wasn't a Hell's Angel. This was
okay.
I can't remember the name of the Hell's Angel because I researched.
That would have been funnier. We move on.
That would be why you became a Hell's Angel. I was like, oh, you're gonna call me a pussy? Look, yeah, all right then.
I'll show you.
Like Meredith, But no, young Meredith Hunter, young black man, was worried that there might be some racism because it's the 60s, He was worried there's going to be racism, so he allowed his friends to talk him into bringing a gun to this gig. He attempted to get onto stage, and from the Wikipedia description, he was grabbed forcefully by the ear by by one of the Hells Angels and shoved back into the crowd. He may or may not have been stabbed at the same time. No one could really tell because of the confusion. It's on camera, but it's not a great angle, and it's 60s cameras. It looks like shit. It looks like a potato. What are you going to do? So, having sawn his ass, as we say, he pulls out the gun and starts shooting randomly into the air. This freaks out the Hells Angels, naturally, because they might have knives, but they don't have guns. So what they do is they pile onto him and basically stab him to death. Pretty much instantly. It does not take very long. It was, perhaps an overreaction, but you know how many people went to prison for this?
Oh, none?
None. Self-defense. This is why you do not bring guns to crowded places, because if you shoot anything, then you are all of a sudden, target number one.
Do you think somebody would have been investigated if he didn't have a gun?
If he hadn't had a gun, it would have been... Oh, you mean because of the racism thing?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I don't know. I know this was looked into, but bear in mind, Hell's Angels...
It was the 60s, yeah, we get it.
Yeah.
It was the 60s. It's barely any good now. Yeah. I imagine it's probably horrible in the 60s. I should have done that to begin with. I'm like, why am I not comfortable?
Annoying you,
why am I not comfortable?
But yeah, bear in mind though that, when it comes to, who do the cops of the 60s hate more? Outlaw biker gangs or black people? It's kind of a...
I'm like in the middle.
It's probably the black people more, to be honest.
At that point, yeah.
But these Hells Angels guys were tried and, they were found to be not guilty.
Okay.
I'm not sure about the justice on that, to be honest. I mean...
You don't know, because probably the judges were corrupt as well. Not corrupt, but...
A little racist?
Well, just a little bit. Just a smidge. Just a little bit.
But this was a jury of the peers found him innocent. So
wow,
Hell's Angel or not,
How many black people were on the jury?
Good question. I imagine the answer is a big fat 0.
Yeah, anyway. We're getting, again.
We are getting off topic again. The thing is, nobody, especially in the Rolling Stones, knew that this was going on at the time. They didn't really notice it until after it had happened, and then all the cameras started pointing at it. It was a pretty nasty scene to watch. Obviously, Mick Jagger himself was really upset about it, and it actually caused the falling out between Rolling Stone magazine and the Rolling Stones, because Rolling Stone magazine quoted them as like, we are terribly disappointed in this, etc. Mick Jagger thought that they took his quote out of context and they never really worked together again, which was a bit of a shame because the Rolling Stone used to tour with the Rolling Stones quite a lot.
Well, I always thought that the Rolling Stones magazine was owned by the Rolling Stones.
No.
I genuinely thought that.
No. They used to work pretty close together, but I don't think they ever owned it.
Oh, how did they get away to call the magazine? Well, who called themselves first? The Rolling Stones.
I actually didn't look that up. I should look that up, but I'm not going to.
No, sorry. It's just I'm just adding more things for you to think about for no reason.
That's two.
So we shouldn't have done that.
So, returning to disasters that happen at festivals, what do you think could be worse than some guy getting brutally stabbed to death?
Is it the same festival?
No.
Okay, this is a different festival.
No, we're going forward in time.
Forward in time.
We're going forward in time to something that's actually really near and dear to my heart, because I've actually been to this festival when it was still going.
So it's a British festival.
It's a British festival.
It's a British festival.
It's a British festival run by the Hells Angels. There's a lot of talk about the Hells Angels in this one.
Well, listen, what else are you gonna do? You can do drugs. Well, you can sell drugs, you can sell guns, and then you run festivals. I mean, it's a very small niche.
It's
actually
a smaller niche than it used to be. I mean, bear in mind the Hells Angels of the 60s and like the 50s and stuff, who were doing a lot more crimes and having a lot more fights with each other.
Yeah.
They sort of mellowed and, became more legit, like just a motorcycle club the further forward you go. By the time they started their signature sort of, Europe-wide festival, which took place Stratford-on-Avon, the Bulldog Bash, as it was known, started in 1987.
I made you say the name of the festival without.
Oh, God. I'm not going to ask you to guess what a biker festival that hasn't run in years is. Come on, man. You have told me several times you do not want to ride a motorbike, so I can't imagine you getting
No.
Getting deep into biker culture,
No, I prefer to be, surrounded by metal and actually feel safe.
Fair enough.
Thank you very much.
I thought you were talking about music for a second. I was just like, when are we surrounded by metal? Like, what? Like, Slipknot surrounding you? That sounds freaky, to be fair.
That would be cool.
Well, just all of them, like,
wearing all their masks at the same time.
Just staring at you silently, like sleep paralysis demons, just like...
No, I have a catch for that. Oh, let's move on.
Yeah,
let's move on. As I said, I don't want this to turn into a 3-hour episode. It looks like it's a 3-hour episode.
It's going to be a 3-hour episode, dude. Deal with it. So the Bulldog Bash used to happen every year up at an airfield on Stratford-on-Avon. Why do you think they chose an airfield?
Because it's easier for the artists to come to the festival?
No, because the main attraction of the Bulldog Bash was not necessarily the music. There is music there, so I count it as a music festival, if you ask me, because I saw some pretty good bands there. But the main focus is drag racing.
Ah, okay. I thought you were going to say an air show.
No, that would be cool, but no.
So drag racing.
Drag racing. You know those giant cars that basically have rockets on the back of them? That
I do know drag racing.
Yeah. Basically, this is a big event for that kind of stuff.
Cool.
And they also have, they have the fancy cars. They have like the top fuel cars, like the top fuel bikes. Those ones with the giant tires, they just sort of sit there. They don't need a stand. They just sat there. They have crazy shows from... I remember very distinctly a guy with a modified VW Beetle doing like crazy donuts where he like puts a handbrake on one of the corner wheels, sticks the accelerator, sticks it to the floor, stuck on, gets out and does a bow for the audience whilst it's going round and round in circles still, completely independently of him. And then he just jumps back in it like it's nothing and carries on. It's like... awesome, really, really good, like quality entertainment. Especially
how many times do you think he got hurt before he actually mastered that? This is where my brain's going. I wonder how many times did he run himself over?
How many legs did he have to break?
Pretty much, like how many steel plates do you have in your hip? Is it even your hip anymore?
Are you half man, half machine?
Pretty much. At that point, if you break it a few times, what's the even point to put a regular hip in?
Yeah, you get, like every time he goes to like get an MRI scan, he's just like, "Gee, no, can't."
He can't go through security at the airport. Yeah, he just beeps. He's like, "I'm sorry, sir. Can you take your change out? I cannot take my hip out. Sorry."
So yeah, you get the kind of event. It's an event for petrol heads. There's like drag shows. There's both kinds of drag shows. I should point out. There's drag shows in the in terms of the bikes and cars and stuff, and also drag shows in terms of people dressing up.
Queens.
Yeah. There's all kinds of strippers and adult entertainment. There's shooting ranges with live rounds. I found that very fun. There's all kinds of stuff, and also probably a very vibrant swinging scene.
I mean, I can see that. Lots of upside down pineapples everywhere.
Upside down pineapples.
Yeah, that's the sign for swingers. If you see that outside of houses, at least in the UK, if you see an upside down pineapple next to a house, that's a swinger's house.
I was not aware of that.
How were you not aware of that?
Because I'm not a swinger, Andre, and now I'm questioning you.
I am not a swinger either, but I do know this sort of thing.
I'm not going to ask where you learned that.
On the internet, Billy.
Fair enough. Well, the way I learned that this place was a swinger's haven was from the advertisements that were posted on the inside of the men's toilet.
Were they upside down pineapples there?
There was not upside down pineapples, but thinking about it, they might have had them outside their tents. I don't know. I didn't go to investigate.
Why not?
Because I was 13, dude.
That's fine. You need to start somewhere.
I was a kid that got brought along on the back of my dad's bike. I am not, going to go, hey, I saw your advertising for the thing. They're going to fuck off, kid.
I'm here to swing dance with you guys.
Yeah. Innocent, young and innocent as I was,
And then this old grandma puts her hand on your shoulder, looks in the eyes and says, "Child, do you learn to swing dance tonight?"
Oh God. Anyway, that I'm imagining that if you're a Hell's Angel and you're writing advertisements about your depraved slut wife on the inside of a toilet door, I imagine you're probably not the best looking person.
Probably not, yeah.
Probably kind of intimidating and terrifying. So
either that or really fat and ugly.
Probably. I mean, if you're resorting to the toilet to get your swinging posts out there, although bear in mind it was 2003. This was a very different time.
Craigslist wasn't that popular back then.
No, the internet wasn't big. We weren't all online all the time. Yeah, I was actually really hoping I could dig through my old t-shirts and find the t-shirt I got from it, because it's probably battered and old now, and oh hey, how tiny I used to be. Look at my skinny ass. But yeah, unfortunately, I couldn't find it. It's a pretty cool t-shirt, though. The thing about the HA, especially when, I know I just talked about, the HA, basically murdering a guy. That kind of thing sort of stopped happening. And, the older that the HA got, the more people sort of, they stopped relying on organized crime for money. They sort of, matured. They became more of just a motorbike club. They became just a bunch of guys who liked bikes, By the modern Hells Angels are not, an outlaw biker gang like you would imagine. But those people still exist, the outlaw biker gangs. And they're the part of the reason why the Bulldog Bash got kind of a reputation. And the reputation was not for Hells Angels acting up. The Warwickshire Police, I believe it was, the Warwickshire Police, they never had a problem with the Hells Angels. They said they always kept people, look, if you're a guy who wants to cause some trouble, you're not going to go to a biker festival and try and cause trouble there.
Yeah, there's no point.
Yeah, it's dumb. It's like, oh, I'm going to go into Floyd Mayweather's boxing gym and say, I am the toughest man, hardest bastard in the world. Can anyone please punch me in the face? No one's going to do that unless they're an idiot.
Yeah.
So what would generally happen though is on the way back from the bike gang, from the biker party, as it were, because people show up in their patches. Everyone knows which gang they belong to, etc. Other bike gangs who were, let's say, operating more outside the law, they started taking pot shots at people. There was an incident where the guy got shot in the leg whilst riding his bike on the M40 in, I believe, 2001.
Yeah.
Every sort of year there'd be some sort of incident, happening to a guy driving on the M40 on the way back. Basically.
So it's basically the same what happens with hooligan clubs, right? It's the same sort of. I mean, they don't get shot with hooligan clubs; they beat the crap out of each other. But it doesn't happen in the stadium most of the time. It happens outside on the streets.
Yeah,
afterwards.
Football hooligans, just
yeah.
And I suppose are there baseball hooligans? Are they?
I don't know. I don't think baseball's the same. It's America. Come on.
You think it would because they got like a device for beating people up right there. I mean, you got your bat. Why not?
Yeah, but I don't think they're allowed with bats. I'm not talking about the actual players. The players don't care about the hooligans.
Oh, no, of course not, no.
I'm talking about the actual hooligans, the fans.
Yeah.
Se. But in the UK, it was a massive problem at some point where there was way too many fights outside of football stadiums.
Well, I was like the Champions League, the European champion. I don't know. I don't care about football, but
I'm just saying from that point of view, I don't know football.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like there was a big riot in Paris, and like a couple of people died not too long ago.
Oh yeah, that happened like yesterday,
like 2 weeks ago. Yeah, or whenever it was. And it's just like, wait, did they lose? Oh no, their team won. So why are they rioting? Okay, whatever. That's
French people probably run out of wine.
Oh yeah, that was about the time Macron was going to ban wine and cigarettes or whatever. So
no, they did ban cigarettes on the streets.
God, I'm amazed that he's not been, horribly taken out of power yet.
I mean, you just take all the French Did we already do this skit?
I think we actually did this.
Did we already do this skit? Because I feel like we already did this skit.
Yeah, probably.
Take all the French charm out of it.
Yeah,
I think we did actually already do this skit on the last one.
Probably. But I'm English, so it's part of my biology that I dunk on the French.
Yeah, but I don't want us to repeat skits now.
That's fair. But yeah, the problem was, or at least the problem in the minds of the outlaw biker gangs, and when I say the outlaw biker gangs, I'm talking about very specifically the outlaws. That's what they call themselves.
Yeah.
These are the kind of guys that wouldn't be accepted into other bike gangs for very, very good reason. They're all fucking completely unstable and insane.
Yeah.
A lot of these guys were kind of, either thrown out of or they were rejected from like more normal bike gangs, more normal motorcycle clubs, I suppose I should call them.
Yeah.
They liked the running drugs and prostitution and gun rings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
These are the guys with who, funnily enough, if you look up the Outlaws biker gang on Wikipedia, there's not that many in the UK. There's about 150 of them.
Yeah.
They claim the area, the place where the Bulldog Bash was held every year since 1987, as their turf. Which is funny because the Hells Angels have been holding that party since 20 years before their gang even started.
Okay, so they were like, no, this is our territory now.
Yeah, we're moving in.
This
is you can't operate on our turf, man. It's like, fuck off, buddy. Who the hell are you? You're like some, you're a lorry driver in his 40s. Stop doing this.
But they felt good about themselves. What can they do?
It's an ego thing. It's a toxic masculinity thing or whatever. It's people want to be macho, they want to be part of a club, they want the connection of brotherhood, which is pretty strong in the HA,
Yeah, but still, you don't need that.
You don't need to go around shooting people, and that's what these guys decided to do.
Again, I come back to the idea, how did they get guns in the UK?
It's not impossible to get
but
guns.
But it's really hard. I mean, you really have to try.
You have to know some people who know some people,
No, the guy that knows the guy that knows the guy.
Yeah, I mean, think about how easy is it to get drugs in the UK? You start with your weed dealer, you go up the list.
Apparently there's a WhatsApp guy that gives you a whole...
every social media is full of it, okay? I'm not going to get into it because it's a whole topic, but Snapchat is always my favourite one because I just associate
because money disappears
kids.
After you look at it, right?
So yeah, that's the idea of Snapchat anyway. You can't take screenshots, so it's hard to provide evidence for the police.
So it's basically dick pics and drug menus.
That's basically what it's there for now, yes. I mean, it's like, how Bitcoin had one function, buying drugs and, illegal stuff.
That wasn't the initial function of it. It turned into that, but that wasn't the point of it.
Well, Bitcoin transactions are completely untraceable. So,
they are traceable actually to accounts, but not to people.
Exactly.
So there's a difference.
Exactly. So anyway, off topic. We're not going to go into another Bitcoin rant. Although it might be very funny. But yeah, the Hells Angels, being, they kind of stand out. They're a big, the most famous of all the bike gangs. They're the most sort of wildly sort of celebrated, I guess. Are the ones with the reputation of being a bunch of hard nuts and being cool and whatever. And if you're at the top of a pyramid, there's always some guy looking to take your head off. You know, if you're...
there's always somebody taking your head off for some reason or not.
In this case, it led to the murder of a man called Jerry Tobin in 2007. So basically, the guy who got shot in the leg, he was the lucky one. This guy got shot in the back of the head.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was this after the festival was done?
After the festival was done, while he was trying to get home. And for whatever reason, he was by himself, which isn't, usually the way Hell's Angels ride. Usually they cluster together a bit. I believe after this, they clustered together a lot more. So Jerry Tobin, for whatever reason, was riding his bike on the way back. Bunch of outlaws in a Green Rover. A Green Rover. They're not even on their motorbikes. What is even the point of a bike gang if you're not going to ride motorbikes when you kill people? What is the point? A Green Rover, Andre. You could not pick a more boring British car than a Green Rover to do your murder in.
Well, they wanted to prove they're British. They're like, you have to notice that we are British. We're not like the American gangs and these Hells Angels. They started in America. They did start in America. They started in America, coming over here, taking our booze and taking our guns. We will show them. Imagine that with an English accent.
Yeah. I don't know what a Staffordshire accent sounds like. Shakespeare, I think. Whatever.
They shall come and they shall take our booze. We shall not accept such things.
Is this a prostitution ring I see before me? But yeah, poor Jerry Tobin was basically... He was chased along the motorway by about, I think it was 4 guys in a Rover. A Green Rover, yeah. As the judge said, when these guys finally were up in front of the judge, this was entirely random murder. It wasn't because they had any particular beef with the guy. The guy hadn't done anything wrong, really. He was just... The only thing he had done wrong, in their eyes, was wear a Hells Angels patch.
Oh, okay.
And he was wearing his jacket. They basically just went out and said... Their boss, who sort of set up this hit, and it was like kind of an initiation ceremony for a couple of them.
Yeah.
I don't know how familiar you are with bike gangs, but they
get initiations, they get beaten or whatever.
There's that stuff. But there's a notion of prospecting. It's like, okay, you're cool enough that we'll consider you.
Yeah.
But we're still going to treat you like shit. Still going to give you make you do the beer run. Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Make you do the sort of busy work. Until you've sort of proven yourself, prove that you're worthy of becoming one of us,
Yeah.
And once you are like a full patch member of the bike gang, they sworn brothers for life, basically.
Yeah.
You also can't quite, leave it exactly.
Yeah.
So it's, a really, really serious deal, and they want to make sure that you're legit. In order to prove he was legit, a guy who... When I looked up the description of the way this man looked, it's quite vivid. He had tattooed on his head "Warrior," and he had the logo of a different bike gang called the Satan Slaves tattooed on the back of his neck.
So he was part of the Satan Slaves beforehand.
No, he was not. He was just a fanboy. He was just a serious fanboy who always wanted to be a part of a motorbike gang.
Oh. So he wasn't even a proper...
He was Reddit. He was a man on Reddit. It's really depressing. This poor guy, Jerry Tobin, didn't even know that people were chasing him, I don't think.
He didn't even care, probably. He was like, I'm going home.
Yeah, I'm going home. I'm feeling a bit stiff from, sleeping in a field for a few days, but I'm going to go back home, see the family. Yeah, maybe I'll take the kids somewhere. Bang. Done. The first shot hit his shoulder. The second shot hit him right in the back of the head. Probably didn't feel it. A lady in a BMW stopped when she found him at the side of the road, because obviously he fell off and went into onto the hard shoulder. Stopped, checked his pulse, realized there was nothing they could do. They got an ambulance to him within about 10 minutes. But I mean,
at that point, if you get shot in the back of the head, very slim chances to actually survive.
Yeah. It's a pretty sad thing. I mean, from what we can tell, the guy had no criminal record. He was a valued and respected member of the community. He was in the Hells Angels. That's why he got shot.
Wow.
Over some dumb, petty bullshit about turf, which doesn't even fucking work,
only they cared about the turf. Nobody else did.
Yeah, I mean, if a bunch of Hells Angels are, coming to my town... The thing is, the town of Staffordshire... I think it's Stratford-on-Avon. That's the one. The town of Stratford-on-Avon actually loved having the festival there because it meant a whole bunch of people who were going to come and buy stuff from there.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of places love festivals.
Yeah.
Because it's good business, right? All of a sudden, you have 2 weeks in which you're going to just make a killing and then not worry the rest of the year.
Yeah, you could make a sizable chunk of your overheads sort of, okay, I can, got a bit more money to play with for the slower months. It works out. Yeah, basically, in order to, the idea of like turf is something that's really only discussed when both people are trying to deal the guns and the drugs.
Yeah.
But it's 2007 in this case. The Hells Angels are not dealing guns and drugs anymore.
Yeah, they're already done with that.
They probably could if they wanted to, but they
didn't
don't.
Want. Yeah,
they're there to have a party and watch music and have a good time.
Yeah,
see large explosive vehicles rocket down the quarter mile at set record times, and that's what they're there for. And unfortunately, this massive piece of shit and there's a couple of his pals who were also, shall we say, known to the police for various things. One of the guys had done 10 years previously for grievous bodily harm. So that was, he went in the slammer for a long time. Got the longest sentence. I think it was 35 years or something.
Yep. He's probably in there still.
Oh, yeah, he's in there now. He's in there now, yeah.
So we can talk about this, so I don't have to look over my shoulder the rest of the month.
It's fine. Okay. We're not in Stratford, and he's in prison, so sucks to suck, I guess.
I mean, it would have sucked to be in Stratford also.
It would. The thing is, like... when I looked up, I was sort of digging around, like the Outlaws biker gang. I was like, oh, okay, what are these guys? What are they about? Like I said, not a whole lot of them in the UK, but they are. What bike gangs do is they tend to sort of affiliate. They have like partner sister gangs or whatever with guys overseas. These guys are associated with literally the worst people on the world.
Oh,
I'm talking the Gypsy Joker biker gang, which is a big deal in Australia. I'm talking. Basically, the Aryan Brotherhood. You can imagine what kind of
they're really lovely people. They sound fun.
Yeah,
they sound fun. Yeah,
not responsible for any prison murders or anything.
No.
That
sounds so.
Yeah. The Hammerskins. Have you ever heard of the Hammerskins?
No, I have not.
They're probably the largest and most well-organized neo-Nazi organization in America. We've said before about how like Nazis don't create art; they just steal it.
Yeah.
They stole their logo from the Pink Floyd movie The Wall. With the crossed hammers?
Yeah, dude, but they missed the point of the movie.
No, I think they got the point of the movie. I was like, oh yeah, that guy's a bad guy. I'm him. I'm literally him. Like, he's literally me. He's like me, for real. Like, that's them. The Nazis have never been good at media literacy, okay?
Thank God, though. Because you imagine if they got good and actually convinced people they're actually doing the right thing.
Yeah. Imagine if, like, the Triumph of the Will wasn't a massively boring, overrated piece of shit.
But I'm just saying, like, imagine if they actually get really good. Because there's a lot of gullible people out there and they will believe all the bullshit that's on the internet.
That is true.
So if you imagine them getting really good and, overproducing sort of podcasts and shit. Not like this one. Like, this one's great, isn't it? Look at my background. Look at my other background. Right? But I'm just saying, like, if they would get to that point, it would get really dangerous.
To be fair, there are some neo-Nazis who are clever enough to sort of hide it and able to hide it. People like Charlie Kirk on the internet being one of them. The internet has done a lot to sort of bring a lot of those guys out of the woodwork. But whilst we're talking about political extremism...
Oh my God. Where are we going?
We're going to Russia, baby.
Oh, of course we are.
We're going to our next festival disaster, because what could be worse than getting shot? Getting blown up. That's what.
Oh, I think I know which one you're talking about.
You might have heard of it. It was called the Tushino Airport bombing, because it was an airfield. It was a festival that's called Wings. In Russia, I think it's Kailan or something like that. I can't pronounce Russian. I was trying to find the lineup for this thing because it's a rock festival. So I'm like, the 2003 rock festival. Who knows? Maybe Blink-182 were on, something like that.
Not in Russia.
Probably not. But Russia was a lot more friendly back then.
But that's not the point. Russia, I think Russians that listen to metal wouldn't listen to Blink-182. It doesn't seem like that's their jam.
I don't know. Who doesn't love all the small things?
All the small things. Yeah, that's true. For somebody that is short, is like the ideal song for me. Like, it's the song about me. Okay, go on, please. Sorry.
This hypothetical Blink-182. I could not find a lineup for this thing.
So did they not have any music on?
They did. It was a music festival, but I could not find a lineup for Love Nor Money. I tried the Wayback Machine. I tried the internet. I could not find the bloody thing, and there's a website for it that allegedly still exists, but all I could find was like some blurry screenshots with no lineup on it. So I don't even know who was playing at this thing. Two people who were not there to see Blink-182 specifically. I'm not going to be able to pronounce these names. I've got them written down here.
Okay.
I'm going to give them to you, and I'm going to ask you to try.
Okay. Well, why do you think I could read Russian? Because I'm Romanian. Wow, that was racist, dude.
No, I just I want you to have a go because I tried by myself about 8 times and I could not. So Andrej has completely failed to try and pronounce these names. I'll give it a go then, since you don't want to.
Yeah, that didn't work out. 2
ladies called Zulikan Ilikadziaya, Eva, whatever, and Zinadia Aliveya.
That will be Zinadia. Zinadia.
Oh, now you want to pronounce it, do you?
Okay, never mind.
Do you want to go hire some outside assistance?
She said, "Can I see it in Cyrillic?"
Yeah. Yeah, bugger off. I'm not going to learn how to write backwards. Sorry. Yes, 2 female suicide bombers. Now, do you know what was...
What? Wait. You went through that really quick. 2 female suicide bombers.
Yes, this was a suicide bombing. Yeah. They suicide bombed this festival. It was, the funny thing was, originally it wasn't supposed to be at that current location. It was supposed to be on an island in the middle of the Moscow River. But for whatever reason, it got transferred to this airfield. And because it was at the airfield, which is, a wide open space, they figured, quite a lot of people were going to be there. This would be the perfect target for a suicide bomb. And the morality of the suicide bombing, obviously it's never a good thing to kill people. But
and you don't get 40,000... virgins when you die.
It's funny that you mentioned Islam because they were Muslim, but they were not the kind of Muslim that you might expect. They were actually from Chechnya.
Okay.
Where it's if those who aren't familiar, Chechnya, Dagestan have a long-standing issue with being considered part of Russia. Yeah. They look like Russians. They kind of talk like Russians. They have beards, but they're also, they're pale-skinned, but they're also Muslims.
Okay.
And there's been a long push in Dagestan and Chechnya for a long time, basically kind of a low-level, low-level civil unrest, shall we say, of gangs of people, attacking places that sell alcohol, getting into, attacking people who they believe are, acting in a haram sort of way.
Okay, like festivals.
Kind of like festivals, yeah. I imagine part of the thinking was, they're Russian, so, obviously we want to kill them because I'm not sure if you're familiar with the 2 Chechen wars.
Yeah.
This was after the second one.
Yeah.
Quote unquote. I mean, technically the second Chechen war did not really end until about 2009. That's when the violence kind of stopped, or at least died down enough to be...
I mean, most wars that involve Russia, the violence doesn't really stop at any point ever.
No, it's usually like a low level. It just sort of quiets down for a while.
Because they will constantly try to stir something up.
Yeah, the Russians are not... Russians, like the Hells Angels, are not necessarily good at security work sometimes.
Oh, that's true.
So on the morning of July the 5th of 2003, as people were entering the festival, going to see File Not Found. No idea who's playing there. Really annoying. If you know who's playing, tell us in the comments. These 2 ladies, there's a specific word for... you know that in Arabic there's a specific word for female suicide bombers?
No, there is there.
Yes, it translates to Black Widow. I'm not going to try and pronounce it.
Come on, Billy.
Because I haven't got it written down, so I'll just mess. It's like Shaika or something like that. But it's
yeah, I'm not going to try to pronounce it. It's something like this.
It's I don't know. Anyway, you're just picking holes in me today.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were fighters for Chechen independence. Long after the war had basically been won by Russia, and it was kind of pointless to carry on anyway. There was a whole bunch of suicide bombings in the name of an independent Chechnya. I don't think that was necessarily a good idea. Maybe if you know a bit more about the history, you would disagree. What I do know is that the Second Chechen War was a lot shorter and more violent than the first one. Basically, the first one ended up with the Russians getting their ass kicked by a bunch of guys who had with stolen ex-Soviet tech.
I mean, as you do.
Yeah, the Russian army got pretty thoroughly embarrassed in the first one, so I think the second
one... went a little bit harder.
They went all in, guns blazing right from the start, and they didn't shoot their own conscripts and have massive fuck-ups like that. Yeah, it's a really, really complicated situation down there. Russia, being Russia, has very little care for the cultural identity of people under its sort of umbrella.
They just always try to integrate them and selling them the lie that they are one people. Actually, as soon as the Soviet bloc fell, right, and they all split up, Russia is been constantly fighting to get all the countries back because they're thinking, these are our people, but they're not. Because before they came along, they were all independent, and they were all fine without them, and then. Yeah.
I think Russia has always been kind of jealous of America because America used to have like this sort of multi-state, like every state was, had a different culture in it. And that's kind of true now, but they're all much more united than the Russian sort of principalities have been. Maybe,
but the way I look at it, right? You take Russia, it's a massive place, right? How much percentage of it can you live in?
Well, the spot that you're currently living in, not very much of it.
No, not very much. Not very much because Siberia, you can't live in Siberia. They tried to colonize Siberia. We all know they tried to colonize Siberia. It didn't work. You know why it didn't work? It's really fucking cold.
It's really cold.
There's no way of surviving there. So what they did, most of the industry, they built it more on the Europe side. Mm-hmm. So as soon as they lost Ukraine, which was
a big chunk of the European Russian.
Yeah, so they was having all the industry, and they were also having all the free grain they could get because Ukraine is
then wasting it.
Yeah, because they're the grain basket of Europe, right?
Yeah, the Soviet Union had Ukraine for like so long, but it buggered up its agricultural sector so badly that it had to import grain from the Americans,
which is ridiculous. Anyway, come on, let's finish up this one because it's probably already an hour.
It's probably already an hour, dude. Have fun. Anyway.
Thanks.
I'm unnecessarily mean and creating a lot of work for Andre today. It's okay. Good. It's good.
Oh, I created my own work.
You did it to yourself. Dow, and that's what really hurts. Anyway. So yeah, I'm not going to do the guessing game. That would be a bit dark for something like this. The first lady.
How many people did they kill? That's the game you wanted to do.
I was about to, and then I thought better of it, and now you're judging me anyway.
12,000 people.
No, it wasn't that many people. Oh. They didn't actually get past the security checkpoints. The security check.
So free. The two of them and then one security guard.
No, it was a bit more than that. The first lady whose name I can't pronounce, she got herself and nobody else. She had a faulty suicide vest. So sucks to suck, I guess. Maybe you should buy your terrorism, supplies from a better shop. B&Q's obviously not cutting it. Go back to home base.
Yeah. Don't buy your suicide vest from Temu.
The second lady whose name begins with Z, she actually did manage to get a fair group of people about 15 minutes later. Now, 15 minutes, that's a long time after someone's just blown themselves up to not have the entire crowd stop and searched. I would assume once one suicide bombing has gone off, people are going to be like, right, everyone freeze, we got to find out if there's any more. Everyone...
I mean, this was security, it wasn't police. Most security is not trained in this sort of things.
I suppose not. I mean, I just assumed because it was a Russian airfield, I assumed there'd be some sort of, military police or, something around there.
Why would it be like... I did security for a festival.
Oh, right.
It was Halloween. The lead on stage was Halloween, and the only reason we did, and we didn't even get paid for it, they're like, you can go see Halloween for free.
Okay, fair enough.
So I'm like, okay, cool, I'm doing it. And I stood at the gate and I just confiscated chains and knives from people. Oh. It was a lot of fun. I went home with a lot of chains and knives. Because
Just so you know where all your drugs go when you lose them at festivals,
no,
ladies
they
and
weren't
gentlemen.
looking for drugs, man. They were like, you can't have chains or knives in here.
That's so random. Like, just chains and knives? Like,
Chains and knives.
so, like, this brick I've got in a sock, is that
It's fine. That's fine. It's inside of the sock. It's safe. It's slightly soft.
It's got a condom on it. It's fine.
It has
like
its
a safer
protection.
bricking, yeah. But yeah, the second lady, whose name I'm not going to try and pronounce, she managed to blow it up in a much more crowded area, leading to 11 deaths and 60 injuries. Yeah.
That's quite a bit.
That was quite a bit. It's one of the deadliest sort of festival disasters that doesn't involve like a stampede, funnily enough, because quite a lot of when you look up like festival accidents that cause
Stampedes,
lots of stampedes, people getting crushed in things.
Yeah, I can see that.
The biggest one was actually, funnily enough, on the way to Hajj one year. It was there was a big tunnel, I think, in Mecca, like that leads to somewhere.
Yeah.
There was a huge crush in there for some reason, and I think it killed like 1,000 people or something.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah,
but that wasn't a festival. That was
that's Hajj.
pilgrimage. That was a
that's
pilgrimage. Just a little bit different.
Yeah,
just a little bit.
They're not there to hear people play that funky music, White Boy. They're there to visit God. You know?
Yeah. At least their version of it. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm trying to sort of sum this up and what can we learn from this? What do you think we can learn from this?
Should I make jokes or should I just be serious?
What we can learn from this is don't hire Russians to do security. 15 minutes after the first person blows up is you should have.
Don't buy your vest from Temu. Oh wait, that's in the wrong direction.
Yeah, we're not trying to give advice to the terrorists here,
I keep on doing this.
Giving advice to bad
I'm fixing people's problems. Problems that we shouldn't be fixing.
Yeah. I'm surprised you weren't trying to tell the HA to start an insurance company or something.
And sell insurance for their own gigs, right?
Oh.
So here's the thing, right? They open a security company and also an insurance company, and then you sell insurance for the security you're already providing, being like, listen, last time shit went down, you might want some insurance.
Have you ever considered being like a life coach, like a money man life coach?
No, I mean, I'll probably be good at it, and I would hate myself.
Just like testimonials, Brandon from the Hells Angels. We started a criminal empire, all thanks to the help of Andre.
Yeah. We were just dealing drugs. Now we're taking them and dealing them. No. Oh, is there any way we can finish this on a positive note?
I'm not sure there is. I mean, people dying at festivals is usually a bad thing. But the good thing is, these incidents are so rare that these are things with Wikipedia articles about them. They're notable things.
Yeah, they're very notable.
How many festivals do we say happen? Well, every year, 2,700, a year.
Yeah.
The fact that there's only a few kind of incidents like this.
There's somebody that actually does their job somewhere.
Yeah.
Probably not the Hells Angel.
They've gotten better since the 60s, that's all I'll say. Because when I was at the Hells Angels Biker Festival, there was no fighting or any issues like that. Everyone was chill.
Yeah.
Everyone was just dudes in their 50s, just hanging around bikes. And
so you just had to wait for them to get old enough so they stop doing stupid shit.
Yeah, basically. Everyone eventually gets old enough to stop doing stupid shit. I think that's a good positive note to leave out on.
Here's to growing old and wise. I'm just growing old. I'm still waiting for the wise part.
The wisdom part comes eventually.
Well, on that positive note,
we've been the Billy and Andre
show, and thank you for watching.